Garden friends, we are going to talk flowers that do well in partial shade in high heat conditions, rather like Texas or other areas like that. So let's get rolling on these type of flowers. I think I have a list of 20. I'll double check that, but let's get rolling. Anyway, so let's go down our list while I pot these up. I don't know if I have enough pots here, but I have my little pots from Bootstrap Farmer. And I like them because they don't take up a lot of space, but the roots have a chance to really develop. So, all right, lantana. That is a really good one. Now, lantana in a lot of areas take full sun. But in a place like Texas, zone 8A, 8B, you want that afternoon shade. That one's not rooted yet, so I'll pass that one up. This one is. So that afternoon shade really benefits them to last in that type of heat, and they bloom beautifully. They will also, I don't know if they will overwinter there, because I had picked up a lantana this last summer because I read an article about lantana that are hardy in zone 8, and the one I picked up wasn't one of them. So there's a specific one that is hardy there. But I've read that you can propagate them. I have not done it myself. So I'm just going to cut off the yellowed leaves just so it gets a chance to put out new leaves from the center. We've got some in here also that because they were so tight together in there, they started to mildew. Anyway, so lantana is a choice, and they have, the butterflies love lantana. So that's one that you could do. Caladiums. Now caladiums, they have their really beautiful foliage plant. You don't need flowers with them. They're so brightly colored. And yeah, they grow from tubers or like little bulbs, whatever that you can find online. So yeah, that's a good one. Impatiens. Now, impatiens do really well in the regular ones in full shade. But the sun patiens, I had sun patiens this last summer. The ones in direct sun didn't do so well. We had a pretty hot summer, but the ones in part shade did gorgeous, and they just performed very well for me. I was disappointed in the ones in full sun because I thought sun patiens, full sun, they just didn't do well. But the ones in partial shade, partial sun, they did fantastic. And they have a lot of colors, mostly pinks and purples and orangey colors. But yeah, that's a really good one. And I've read you can bring them inside to overwinter. So my next one on the list is vinca. This is annual vinca. And yeah, they can take a lot of heat. Mine in the direct sun did fabulous, but they also will take partial shade and do well. Now, sometimes it depends on how much partial shade they get. And you have to remember that as the season goes on, the sun direction changes. The height of summer solstice, the sun is directly overhead. As you get coming up to summer solstice and after summer solstice, it's coming at an angle. And so that's going to change, especially if your plants are under trees, how much and when they get sun. So that's just something you're going to have to do with trial and error and figure out, where the sun's coming from. Now, a lot of times you can also grow some of these in containers and move them as the sun moves and enjoy them that way. Yeah, the vinca, great. And they will even, like down, I have a friend, Garden Happy, her vinca reseeded really well. I've not had it reseed, but I have a much shorter growing season than she does. And yeah, I think that would be great. Next year, if I think about it, I will collect the seeds and then sow them indoors in the winter and then put them out again in the garden. So begonias, I love begonias. And wax begonias, they will do really well in intense heat and with they'll especially like the partial shade in the intense heat. Now, I went and visited up in Meridian, Idaho, the Scentsy, the candles, their main headquarters, their grounds, they have planted up beautifully, just gorgeous. And they had these wax begonias there, just the regular ones. You don't have to have fancy ones. And they were just gorgeous, just planted in mass. That's a key too to getting just a garden show, is to plant a lot of something that does well for you. So, all right, salvia. Now, there's a lot of salvias that will do well in part shade. And they love the heat, and the hummingbirds absolutely love them, and the bees, they do beautiful in those conditions. So that's another big win. And like Amistad, I have one, love it, but it doesn't bloom very long for me because I have such a short growing season. I don't have the heat that many have, and what I may get higher heats in the day, but our temperatures at night drop really low, and that can have effect too on how well a plant does in your garden or how well it blooms. So there's many varying factors. So there's something called Turk's Cap. Now, I thought that meant a lily, but this is actually Texas native. And it thrives in partial shade, heat, and it has bright red blooms. So anytime you can go native, it's good for your local flora and fauna. And so that's a good one, Turk's Cap. Now, let me see if there's a technical name on here for it. Malva viscus arboreus. So that's the Turk's Cap. Now, there's also Turk's Cap lily, and that's not what we're talking about here. So coleus, oh yeah, coleus, one of my favorites. You can grow it from seed very easily. I did a package of dollar store seeds one year. I did them in the plastic egg cartons, and they did beautiful. They did absolutely wonderful in that. And I don't have any right now, but they also would do well in one of my small planters, one seed trays. Let me show you. Yeah, I had the best success with that little dollar store seed packet. But one of these, this is the burpee ones that has the silicone. I just scrubbed these up to get them ready for seed starting for this year. I promised myself I'm not going to go wild with seed starting because last year it got so crazy. Yeah, it became a burden to have that many seedlings going because we started traveling about the time. Yeah, they were all needing extra care, so that was a bad idea on my part. So I still got my list. Now, Black-Eyed Susan Vine, it tolerates heat, it loves the heat, and partial shade. It will also, and that's again, morning sun, afternoon shade, it's perfect, or dappled sun. Now, dappled sun is what comes through the leaves of trees, and if you have a lot of trees, you can thin the branches and you will get a little bit more sun into your garden area if that's a possibility for you, and it doesn't harm the tree, done right. So Black-Eyed Susan Vine, yes, I grew a pink one that I got from, it was Annie's Annuals. Now it is called Curious Flora. I loved that thing. It covered my whole back wall. It was beautiful. I also like the white one. I planted it this last summer and it didn't do well. I'm going to try again because the white one is gorgeous too. Well, all of them are gorgeous. That is Black-Eyed Susan Vine Thunbergia. Pentas. Now, Pentas, I'm going to see if I can get a picture of that to put up. It's heat-loving, attracts butterflies and hummingbirds, and grows well in partial shade. Yeah, that is one I have grown, but I can't overwinter it. I've never tried to grow it from seeds. I don't even know if you can. I'll look it up. Plumbago. Now, this is one, I haven't found one hardy in my area, but there are hardy ones. So Plumbago it's also called sky flower because the blue is such a pretty sky blue. So it is heat tolerant and low maintenance, and it grows well in partial shade. All of these I picked out for partial shade, so that is in there. Hellebores. I've not gotten into hellebores only because the time of year they're blooming and performing, I'm covered in snow, and therefore they're covered in snow. So I don't get a whole lot from them, but they thrive in shady conditions, and they can handle high heat once they're established. So know that. Also, they only bloom, I think, in the spring. So in Texas, that spring may happen way before my spring happens. So wishbone flower, Torrenia. They're also called monkey face, aren't they? I'll have to look that one up. But Torrenia, a great option for bright shade with beautiful trumpet shaped blooms. Now, I haven't tried this one in a long time. I should try it. Gara, that's a good one. tolerates heat, grows in partial sun or dappled light. There's also like dwarf ones. I have 2 of them that are the shorter growing ones, and I have a white one that's a little bit taller. I always thought they were weedy looking, but when they came out with the dwarf ones or the shortened ones, I really like them, and I have 2. And I just love them because the stems are also a bright color. So even when they don't have flowers on them, they just bring a spark of brightness to the garden. Angelonia, summer snapdragon is another name for it. Heat loving and adaptable, meaning it loves the direct sun, but it will adapt to part shade. Zinnias. Now, there are some zinnia varieties, and if you read up on the packaging and whatever, all of them do love full sun. But some will tolerate or bloom in partial shade, but they won't bloom as much as if they got full sun. But in the Texas heat, if you have a long summer of high heat, you might be surprised at how well they do for you, even in partial sun. And you won't know until you try. You gotta, even if you only bought 1 packet of seeds for $3 and tried it, you might be surprised at how well they do. Another thing is you could plant them in pots, move them around, find the perfect spot for them, and then next year you could put them in the ground in that spot. Now another thing I've read about Texas, now I haven't actually gardened there, but that's where this lady is from that asked for this, is I've read that they have high clay content, and that could be troublesome. So make sure that you amend the soil with organic matter, compost, etc., or do like mounds where the plants can drain well and not get caught up in that claggy clay, because if it cracks, then it exposes the roots and they can become dried out, and you don't want that. So either make sure you mulch well and or compost well. So, or add compost as mulch. Dianthus, pinks. There's a lot in this family. The dianthus do beautiful for me. They're in the part shade, part sun. Mine, with deadheading, bloom through the whole season. Last year we had a lot of 100-degree days, and they still did well. And so it's just the key is to keep them deadheaded. And that could be a little bit of work, but I do mine in the morning. I go out with my coffee and I walk around the garden and I deadhead as I go. And so it keeps it under control. Coral bells, heuchera. Heuchera is not really grown for its flowers. Usually it's for its bright foliage. There is some beautiful colors of heuchera. I have a plum colored one that is just gorgeous. I have an apricot colored one. There's all kinds. So look up heucheras and look up all the ranges of colors. They really do beautiful, especially in part shade. Tithonia, Mexican sunflower. Now you might think that these would only grow in full sun or bloom in full sun, and that's not actual. They're adaptable to part shade. Now I'm going to relate, there was a couple, now they live down like in the LA area. LA here is Los Angeles in California. And they had a side garden that down beside the house where the plants start growing was full shade. But once they got up to the top of the fence, they got full sun. So only part of the plant got full sun. So keep that in mind too. You may start with the plant in full shade, but when it grows up, it might get sun from wherever, for whatever reason. And they grew tomatoes that way, peppers, cucumbers. I was amazed at what they were able to grow, and I was then encouraged to try different things that you think might not work. But lo and behold, they will. Cleome. Now, Cleome is one of my favorites. I am determined. I don't think I have any seeds left. That's one thing. I told myself I wasn't buying seeds this year, but I am going to try with Cleome again. Mice got in here to the greenhouse and they ate all those seeds, so I didn't get to reseed where I wanted them. And since then, I haven't grown them, so I want to get some more seeds. But they thrive in hot, warm climates, and they do well in partial shade in those climates. So let's give you, that's 20 sage, 20 flowers for part shade. Now, tips for success. Mulching, that helps retain moisture. As the mulch breaks down, it helps the soil to become looser If it's clay soil, you should have worms that come and, help to turn the soil over. And it keeps the soil cooler. So water deeply and consistently to help flowers with heat stress. That I have found, now I don't know, Texas is probably humid, but here where it's arid, I have my drip, but I also have these little misters that go off at the same time. And that helps me combat spider mites. Spider mites are terrible, have been the last couple of years here. And so those have really helped tremendously to combat spider mites without chemicals or pesticides, even the organic ones. Morning sun. Now, this is important because in high temperatures, getting morning sun and then afternoon shade is ideal, but you can do it if you're getting dappled sun, meaning you're getting some sunlight through the trees and the limbs, that works too. And yeah, just even here, the plants that get morning sun and then afternoon shade are the best ones in partial shade, like my dianthus, they get morning sun and then afternoon shade. And then sometimes they get a little more afternoon shade because what's shading them is a tree. The sun gets past the tree and then it's getting some late evening sun, but it's not long enough to create a problem. So it's still getting partial. So it's just the harsh afternoon sun. Now, I had a friend who grew hydrangeas in a high heat area, and it was full sun. Now, these are the hydrangeas that prefer a little bit more shade. What she did was she put up an umbrella, a big beach umbrella over it in the summer. It was a white umbrella, so it got diffused light, but that hydrangea did so gorgeous all summer long. It was amazing. And I just thought, what an ingenious idea, because she didn't have any shade in that spot. It was planted in a big wine barrel. And yeah, and even the umbrella was pretty. It wasn't some ugly, gaudy thing. And in fact, it had like a white fringe around the edge. So it actually looked quite Victorian, like a parasol. So anyways, that, my friends, is all 20 partial shade flowers. And I hope you got something from this. And don't be afraid to experiment. I really want you to reach out and do that. You will never fail, you'll only learn. And that's the great thing about gardening. And especially if you get plants on the cheap, like this oregano I found up here. I had been on the search for this variegated oregano. I can't remember the exact name. If I find it, I'll put it up. And I looked everywhere, even at the big nurseries. I never saw it. Local nursery here at Ace Hardware, which is 1 mile up the street. Went out there and there it was. And it was in a little 4-inch pot. I think it was $5. And now look at how many. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, as soon as this one roots, plants from it. I intend on putting this in my Mediterranean garden that I am planning out. I will take you on that journey with me. Right now, here, this is the middle of December. I'm starting plants from cuttings. I did the rosemary recently. That's going in that garden. I'm on the hunt for an olive tree. Now I'm on a budget, so my main expenditure will be either a bay laurel tree that they can make into a lollipop shape, like a topiary. I'll keep it in a container, and an olive tree. Those are going to be my two main expenses for this plot. Everything else I'm going to grow from seed, cuttings, gifts from friends. If I see a plant in a friend's garden, I will ask to take cuttings, and that's how I'm going to do this garden. This is old-fashioned gardening. This is not plop and drop, meaning you get big plants, you put them in, and you have an instant garden. That's a way to go about it, but it's super expensive unless you have somebody sending you free plants. And I love the journey of old-fashioned gardening. I learned from my grandparents and my parents, and they would have been aghast at what people pay for plants these days. Nothing fancy for them, and they always had the most beautiful and productive, beautiful flower gardens, but productive vegetable gardens. They never bought a fertilizer off the rack. They had manures, compost, etc. Good old-fashioned gardening, and I know you guys can do it too. And everyone's on a budget now. Everybody's been on a budget for a long time, and you can grow a beautiful garden without paying for expensive plants. And I want to encourage you to do it. Buy a packet of seeds, even if it's at the dollar store. You might think dollar store seeds, and I have had the best success with dollar store seeds. So give it a whirl, reach out as far as experimentation, and see what will do well in your garden conditions. And remember, the garden zones are only a tiny piece of the equation of what will work in your garden. And what works for me in my zone 8 may not work for you in your zone 8. Now, for the lady, I can't remember her name right now, who commented, she's in Texas, zone 8A. I encourage you to go watch She's a Mad Gardener. She's in Texas, zone 8A, and she has a lot of videos on what she grows and what she's doing, and you may get a lot of help from her because she's in the same region. So go ahead and give her a look and see what you think. Alrighty, I think that's it, my friends. I will be back. I will be sure and show you the area for my Mediterranean garden. I will also drop a plan to kind of give you an idea of what I'm thinking. And that can change, because when you're designing a garden, you can try something and then all of a sudden you realize that's not going to work, so you change it. But work in progress. All right, I'll see you later. Bye.